Hello, my name is Rebecca Blair, and I'm the interim rector of Trinity Church in Topsfield, Massachusetts. And today, I want to tell you a story that Jesus told ever so long ago. And this is how the story goes. When Jesus was with his disciples, he told them stories. And they liked to listen to his stories. And they were especially glad that his stories were about God. Now, it wasn't just his friends who listened to his stories. There were other people who listened because they wanted to hear what Jesus had to say. Now, it wasn't just Jesus who listened to the stories. It wasn't just the disciples that listened to the stories. It wasn't just his friends who listened to the stories. We listen to his stories, and we listen to them even today. Now, when we listen to Jesus' stories, we can ask God to touch our hearts and allow ourselves to be changed by what Jesus has to say. Now, one day, there was a lawyer who asked a question. And the question was this: Jesus, what is it that God wants? And Jesus said, "Silly person, you know what God wants." And the lawyer said, "The Lord our God wants us to love God with all our hearts and all our minds and all our souls. And God wants us to love our neighbor as ourselves." And Jesus said, "You're right. That is what God wants. God wants us to love God with all our hearts and all our minds and all our souls, and to love our neighbor as ourselves." Now the lawyer said to Jesus, "Tell me, who is my neighbor? Who is it that I need to care about? And what is it that I need to do?" And Jesus said, "Let me tell you a story." And this is the story that Jesus told. Once upon a time, there was a man. And he was walking along the Jericho road. He had a long journey ahead of him, so he had his bag and he had his staff and he walked along the road. He knew it was kind of a dangerous road, so he sang to himself, he said his prayers. And he thought about where he was going. But as he was traveling down the road, there got to be some robbers. And the robbers took him. And they took his clothes, and they took his bag, and they took his staff, and they beat him up. And they lay in so that he was lying on the side of the road, just about dead. And the man thought, surely I am going to die. So as this man was lying on the side of the road, a priest from the temple was also traveling on the road. And he was traveling along. He was saying his prayers. He was thinking about what he was going to do when he got to the temple. And there, by the side of the road, he saw someone who looked like he was dead. And he said, "Oh, this man is dirty. There's blood all over the place. I'm scared of this man. I'm not going to touch him. I can't help him. And anyway, I need to get to the temple on time to say my prayers." So, the priest kept walking. Then there was another man. He was walking along the road. And this man was a lawyer. He knew all about God's law, and he knew how to teach that law to others. In fact, I think he was on his way to teach a class or something. And he came across the man beside the road, and he said, "Oh, I think he's dead. I don't have to worry about it. And what would I do? I don't know how to help him. I will just keep walking." So, that is what he did. Then there was another man who was on the road. And this man was traveling on a donkey. He was letting his mind wander as he traveled. He thought, maybe I'll get to my home before dinner. Maybe someone is cooking me something good to eat. Now, this man was a Samaritan. That meant that he was different from the lawyer and the priest. He was an outsider. He ate different food, he wore different clothes. He was just different. And the people, like the lawyer and the priest, they didn't approve of Samaritans. They didn't want to have anything to do with them. But the Samaritan came across this man who was on the side of the road, and he looked like he was just about dead. And the Samaritan said, "I think this man needs some help. Here, I'm going to find some bandages First, I'm going to clean his wounds. I'm going to see what I can do to fix him up. I'm going to give him a chance to live. Then, when the man who was by the side of the road was all bandaged up, the Samaritan said, "Here, please, ride my donkey, and I'll walk, and we'll go to a place where there's an inn. And at that inn, there'll be someone who can take care of you." So they went to the inn, and the Samaritan gave the innkeeper money to take care of the man who had been almost dead on the side of the road. And he also said to the innkeeper, "When I come back, on my way back, I'll make sure you're paid for all your troubles." So then, after Jesus told this story, he asked the question, who has been a neighbor to this man in need? Now, the lawyer knew the answer to that question. Jesus' friends knew the answer to that question. And we know the answer to that question. And we know how to be a neighbor to those in need. Now, the enemy, he also knew the answer to the question. And he said, "I don't have any business here because they are not going to listen to me." So thank you for listening to this story. And I hope, just like the disciples so long ago, our hearts are changed by hearing what Jesus has to say.